She notices it first on a Tuesday morning when they're having breakfast together, and she realizes that she's looking at someone she doesn't recognize. Not physically. His face is the same, his body is the same. Everything external about him looks exactly like the man she married 6 years ago. But something fundamental has shifted in how he carries himself, in how he moves through their home, in the way he interacts with her and with the space they share. He walks through their kitchen like he's visiting someone else's house, picking things up and putting them back down like he's not quite sure where they belong. He opens the refrigerator and stares at the contents like he's never seen food before, like he's trying to figure out what to eat, but nothing looks appealing or familiar. She watches him move through the kitchen with a rigidity that feels unnatural, like every movement is deliberate and calculated rather than easy and automatic. He sits at the breakfast table with a stiffness that suggests he's uncomfortable being there, like he's a guest in someone else's home rather than someone who lives here, who chose this table, who picked out the dishes they're eating from. He pulls out a chair and sits down slowly, carefully, like he's afraid the chair might break, or like he's not sure it's safe to commit his full weight to it. He looks at the breakfast she's prepared, eggs and toast and fresh fruit, and his expression is blank, unreadable, like he's looking at food prepared by a stranger for a dinner he didn't attend. She tries to engage him in conversation, asking him how he slept, what his plans are for the day, what he wants to do this weekend. She asks these questions the way she has every morning for 6 years, expecting the responses she's gotten 1,000 times before. But his responses are monosyllabic and distracted, like he's mentally somewhere else entirely, somewhere far away from this kitchen, far away from this table, far away from her. He's sitting right next to her, less than 3 feet away, but he feels emotionally miles away, separated from her by a distance that feels unbridgeable. She studies his face while he's staring down at his coffee cup like it holds the secrets of the universe, trying to figure out what's changed, trying to understand when her husband, the man who used to make her laugh until she cried, who used to be fully present with her in every moment, who used to show genuine interest in her life and her thoughts and her feelings, became this distant, disconnected stranger. She doesn't say anything about it in that moment because she doesn't know what to say. She doesn't want to seem needy or clingy or like she's overreacting to what might just be him having an off day, a bad morning, a difficult moment. So she finishes her breakfast in silence, watching him push food around his plate without really eating anything, watching him check his phone multiple times like he's waiting for something important, something that will rescue him from this moment, something that will give him an excuse to leave. She watches him stand up from the table, rinse his plate under cold water, and head to the shower without even kissing her goodbye, something he's been doing every morning for 6 years without fail, a small gesture that has become essential to how she defines their marriage. That evening, he comes home from work and the strangeness continues, intensifies even. He walks through the front door at 5:47 p.m., exactly the time he always arrives home, and he acknowledges her presence with a nod, just a nod, not a word, not a smile, not even a glance in her direction. She's been waiting for him all day, has prepared dinner, has set the table, has been thinking about what she wanted to tell him about her day. But his acknowledgement is so minimal, so empty of any real connection, that she feels something inside her deflate. He doesn't hug her, doesn't ask how her day was, doesn't seem to register that she's been waiting for him to get home, that she's been thinking about him, that she's been hoping he might be different today than he was this morning. He heads straight to their bedroom and changes out of his work clothes into sweatpants and a t-shirt with the kind of deliberate precision that suggests he's following a script. He moves through their home like someone moving through a museum, observing things carefully, noting their existence, but not really engaging with them, not really connecting with the space or with the person who inhabits it. He runs his hand along the wall as he walks through the hallway, and she wonders if he's actually feeling the texture, or if he's just going through the motions, if he's just performing the action of walking through a house because that's what he's supposed to do. She asks him if something is wrong, if he's okay, if something happened at work that's bothering him. She asks these questions carefully, gently, trying not to sound accusatory or demanding. She asks like someone who's afraid of breaking something already fragile, like someone who's tiptoeing around a subject that feels dangerous and uncertain. He tells her that everything is fine, that he's just tired, that he had a long day, that there were meetings and emails and the usual office drama. But his tone is flat and his words feel hollow, like he's reciting a script that he's memorized but doesn't believe in, like he's reading lines from a play that he's not emotionally invested in. She wants to push him, wants to demand that he tell her what's really going on, wants to shake him and force him to see her, to acknowledge her, to be present with her. But something in his expression stops her, something in the way he's looking at her, or rather, not looking at her, makes her understand that pushing won't help, that confrontation will only make him retreat further into whatever internal world he's disappeared into. She recognizes in that moment that she's going to have to be patient, that she's going to have to wait, that she's going to have to find a way to reach him without pushing him away completely. They eat dinner together in silence, both of them sitting at the table in the same room, but feeling like they're in separate dimensions entirely. She tries to fill the silence with conversation, talking about her day, telling him about something funny that happened at work, mentioning a friend's drama that she normally knows he finds entertaining and would laugh about. But he responds with minimal engagement, just nodding occasionally, not asking follow-up questions, not adding his own commentary, not engaging with the content of what she's saying in any meaningful way. She realizes that she's been doing most of the emotional labor of their relationship for as long as she can remember, but it's only now, when he's completely withdrawn and completely checked out, that she's becoming acutely aware of it, becoming acutely aware of the fact that she's been carrying most of the weight. After dinner, he retreats to the living room and sits on the couch staring at the television without really watching it. The show that's playing is something he used to love, something that would normally make him laugh or make him engaged. But tonight he's staring at it with the same blank expression he's had all evening, like he's not seeing the images on the screen, like he's looking through the television rather than at it. She sits down next to him and tries to cuddle up to him the way she normally does, resting her head on his shoulder, reaching for his hand with the kind of natural ease that comes from 6 years of shared intimacy. But he's stiff and uncomfortable with her touch, and she can feel the tension in his body, the resistance to her affection. After a few minutes of her trying to be close to him and him pulling away, he stands up and says he's going to take a shower. She watches him leave, feeling confused and hurt and worried all at once. She doesn't understand what's happening, doesn't understand why her husband is acting like a stranger in his own home, doesn't understand how to fix whatever is broken between them. She sits on the couch alone, wondering if this is temporary, wondering if he's going through something that he'll eventually come back from, or if this is the beginning of the end, the slow dissolution of their marriage into something that used to be real but no longer is. This pattern continues over the following days and weeks, becoming more entrenched, more established, more like the new normal rather than an aberration. Every morning, he wakes up and moves through their home like a ghost, present physically but emotionally absent, going through the motions of living but not actually living. He goes to work, he comes home, he eats dinner, he sits in front of the television, and he goes to bed, all without really engaging with her, all without really being present in their shared life, all without any indication of what's causing the shift or when it might end. She watches him become increasingly disconnected, increasingly withdrawn, increasingly distant from her and from their marriage, and she becomes increasingly frightened about what this means for them. She starts paying close attention to his behavior, trying to figure out if there's a pattern, trying to understand what might be causing this shift. She notices that he spends a lot of time in the bathroom, running the shower for longer than necessary, sometimes just sitting in there with the door locked for extended periods of time. She wonders what he's doing in there, if he's crying, if he's hiding, if he's just trying to escape the pressure of having to interact with her and with their marriage. She notices that he's not sleeping well. She hears him getting up in the middle of the night and going to the living room, presumably scrolling on his phone or staring at the ceiling or just lying in the dark trying to figure out what's wrong with him. She notices that he's lost interest in the hobbies he used to love, that he hasn't been to the gym in weeks, that he's not reading the books he used to read, that he's not playing the video games that used to bring him joy and make him lose track of time. He used to spend hours building miniature models, carefully gluing tiny pieces together, creating intricate worlds that were completely separate from his real life. But those models now sit untouched on a shelf in their spare room, gathering dust, abandoned like everything else that used to bring him happiness. She wonders if this is depression, if this is a sign of something more serious, if this is something that requires professional help, or if it's just a phase that he's going through. She starts to wonder if he's having an affair, If this distance and strangeness is the result of him being emotionally invested in someone else, if he's fallen in love with someone and is now pulling away from her in preparation for leaving. But there are no signs of that. He's not coming home late. He's not being secretive with his phone. He's not suddenly taking more care with his appearance or spending hours at the gym. If anything, he's looking worse. He's not shaving as often. He's not changing his clothes as frequently. He looks like someone who's stopped caring about how he appears to the world. Someone who's given up on presenting a version of himself to anyone. She starts to wonder if he's depressed, if this emotional withdrawal is a symptom of a deeper mental health issue that's been developing for months or even years. She thinks about the stress he's been under at work, the restructuring, the layoffs, the uncertainty about whether his position is secure. She thinks about his complicated relationship with his parents, about the pressure they've always put on him to achieve certain things, to reach certain milestones, to become a certain type of person. She thinks about his friend who went through a traumatic experience a few months ago and how he never really processed it with anyone, just internalized it and moved forward like it hadn't affected him. She starts to put together a picture of a man who's carrying something heavy, who's struggling with something internal and fundamental, who's retreated into himself as a coping mechanism for something he can't articulate. She starts to recognize the signs of someone who's lost their sense of self, someone who's questioning who they are and what their life means, someone who's feeling disconnected from the life they've built and uncertain about whether they want to continue living that life. She recognizes these signs because she's read articles about depression and identity crisis and existential dread, because she's watched documentaries about mental health, because somewhere deep inside herself she knows that what's happening to her husband isn't about her or about their marriage. It's about something much deeper, something that he's struggling with entirely on his own. She tries to talk to him about it one evening, tries to gently suggest that maybe he should talk to someone, that maybe it would help to see a therapist or talk to someone he trusts about what's going on. She approaches this conversation carefully, trying not to make him feel attacked or judged, trying to frame it as something that could help him rather than as something that suggests he's broken or damaged. But he shuts her down immediately, telling her that there's nothing wrong with him, that she's the one being paranoid, that she's imagining problems where there aren't any, that she needs to stop trying to fix him because he's not broken. He tells her that he's fine, that everything is fine, that she's overreacting and making a bigger deal out of this than it actually is. He tells her that everyone goes through phases where they feel disconnected, where they feel tired, where they don't feel like being social or engaging with the world. He tells her that she needs to give him space, that she needs to stop hovering over him, that she needs to stop trying to analyze his every mood and his every action. But his insistence that everything is fine only confirms her suspicion that something is very much not fine, that his defensiveness is a sign that he knows something is wrong but he's not ready to admit it or deal with it. She becomes increasingly worried and increasingly frustrated. She's worried because she loves him and she can see that he's suffering, even if he won't admit it, even if he's denying it and pushing her away. She's frustrated because he won't let her in, won't let her help, won't even acknowledge that there's a problem that needs to be addressed. She's frustrated because she's trying everything she can think of to reach him. She's being patient. She's being compassionate. She's trying to give him space while also trying to show him that she cares and that she's here for him, and nothing is working because he's not letting her in. He's not accepting her help. He's not even acknowledging that anything is wrong. One night, after he's been particularly distant and cold to her, after he snapped at her for asking him a simple question about his day, after he's made her feel small and stupid for trying to connect with him, she breaks down. She sits on the edge of their bed while he's in the bathroom and she cries, all the frustration and worry and hurt and confusion pouring out of her at once. She's crying because she misses her husband, because the man she married seems to have disappeared and been replaced by this stranger, because she doesn't know how to fix this, because she doesn't know how to reach him, because she's terrified that their marriage is falling apart and there's nothing she can do to stop it. She cries quietly, trying not to let him hear, but of course he hears, because even though he's been acting like a stranger in their home, he's still perceptive enough to notice when something has shifted, to recognize when his wife is falling apart. He comes out of the bathroom and finds her sitting on the bed with her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. And in that moment, something shifts in him, something cracks, something breaks through the wall he's been building around himself. He sits on the bed next to her, and for the first time in weeks, he doesn't keep his distance. He reaches out and takes her into his arms. and she collapses against him, her tears flowing freely now, her pain finally finding an outlet. He holds her while she cries, and he cries too, quietly at first, then more openly, his own tears mixing with hers as they sit together on the edge of their bed and finally allow themselves to feel the depth of what's been happening, the reality of how disconnected they've become. When her tears finally subside, she pulls back and looks at him, and she can see that something has shifted in his expression. She can see vulnerability there, fear there, pain there, all the things he's been hiding behind his coldness and his distance. She wipes his tears away and tells him that she needs him to talk to her, that she can't help him if he won't tell her what's going on, that their marriage can't survive this kind of distance and silence. She tells him that she loves him, that she wants to help him, that she wants to understand what he's going through. She tells him that she's scared he's going to continue pulling away, that she's scared their marriage is falling apart, that she's scared she's going to lose him. He listens to her pour out all her fear and all her pain, and she watches as his face crumbles slightly as the rigid mask he's been maintaining starts to crack and fracture. He takes a shaky breath and tells her that he doesn't know what's wrong with him, that he's been feeling empty and disconnected for months, that he doesn't know how to explain it to her because he doesn't understand it himself. He tells her that he feels like he's supposed to be someone he's not, that he's been living a life that doesn't feel authentic to him, that he's been going through the motions without actually living, without actually experiencing joy or meaning or purpose. He tells her that he loves her, that he's not leaving, that he's not having an affair, that his distance has nothing to do with her or with how he feels about her. He tells her that his distance has everything to do with him, with his own internal struggles, with his own sense of disconnection from his life and from himself, with his own crisis of identity and purpose. He tells her that he's been feeling like a stranger in his own home because he feels like a stranger to himself, because he doesn't recognize the person he's become, because he doesn't know how to be the person he thinks he should be while also being true to who he actually is. And in that moment, sitting on the edge of their bed with tears streaming down both of their faces, she finally understands. She finally understands that her husband isn't acting like a stranger in their home as a rejection of her or of their marriage. He's acting like a stranger in their home because he's a stranger to himself, because he's lost touch with who he is and what he wants, because he's been living a life that doesn't feel authentic to him, a life built on expectations and obligations and the pressure to be someone he doesn't actually want to be. She finally understands that the work ahead of them isn't about saving their marriage from infidelity or betrayal. It's about helping her husband find himself again, about supporting him as he rebuilds his sense of identity and purpose, about creating space for him to figure out who he actually is beneath all the roles he's been playing. She holds him while he cries. Finally, after months of emotional distance and shutdown and silence, he's letting her see how much he's been struggling, how much pain he's been carrying alone. She runs her hand through his hair and tells him that they're going to figure this out together, that she's not going anywhere, that she's going to help him find his way back to himself, that she believes in him even when he doesn't believe in himself. She tells him that it's okay to feel lost, that it's okay to not have all the answers, that it's okay to not know who you are or what you want. She tells him that being confused and uncertain doesn't make him weak or broken, it makes him human, and that she loves him, all of him, including the lost and confused parts. The next morning, he makes an appointment with a therapist. She's grateful to see him taking action, grateful to see him recognizing that he needs help, grateful to see him willing to do the work required to understand what's been happening to him and why he's been acting like a stranger in his own home. She offers to go with him to his first appointment, but he tells her that he needs to do this alone first, that he needs to have space to talk about his feelings and his struggles without worrying about how they're affecting her, without feeling like he has to protect her from his own pain. She respects that decision, even though it's hard, even though part of her wants to be in that room to support him and understand what he's going through, even though part of her feels like she's being shut out again. But she recognizes that therapy is his space, that it's important for him to have a safe place where he can explore his thoughts and feelings without worrying about anyone else's reactions. She tells him that she supports his decision, that she believes in the process, that she'll be here waiting for him when he gets back. When he comes home after his first therapy session, she can see that something has shifted in him. He's not magically better. Healing doesn't work that way. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. Change is a process, not an event. but she can see that he's acknowledged his struggle, that he's asked for help, that he started the process of understanding what's been wrong with him and why he's felt so disconnected. He sits down and tells her what he talked about with the therapist, tells her about some of the things they discussed, tells her that the therapist helped him identify that what he's been experiencing sounds like depression and possibly a profound lack of sense of purpose or identity. He tells her that when he was in college, he had dreams and ambitions and a clear sense of who he wanted to be and what he wanted to do with his life. He had goals and plans and a vision for his future that excited him. But somewhere along the way, he got married, he got a job, he got a house, he settled into the life that was expected of him, and he started living a life that looked good on paper but didn't feel authentic to him. A life that others would envy but that felt hollow and empty to him. He tells her that he's been pretending to be happy, pretending to be fulfilled, pretending to be the person he thought he was supposed to be, the successful professional, the attentive husband, the guy who has it all figured out. He tells her that somewhere along the way, the pretending started to feel so real that he forgot what authentic happiness felt like, forgot what it felt like to be excited about his own life, forgot who he was before all the obligations and responsibilities and expectations came crashing down on him. He tells her that he's been feeling like a prisoner in his own life, trapped by the choices he made, trapped by the person everyone expected him to be, trapped by the very life he thought would make him happy, but that has instead made him miserable. She listens to him, and she realizes something important. His sense of being a stranger in his own home isn't about her or about their marriage being fundamentally broken or flawed. It's about him feeling like a stranger to himself, about him having lost touch with his own identity and his own sense of purpose and meaning. She realizes that she can't fix this for him, that this is work he needs to do on his own, that she can't take this burden away from him or solve this problem for him. But she also realizes that she can support him while he does it, that she can be present while he figures it out, that she can believe in him and love him while he's going through this dark period. Over the following weeks, he starts attending therapy regularly, twice a week, sometimes 3 times if he can get an appointment. He starts reading books about identity and purpose and meaning and authenticity. He starts journaling, trying to articulate what he wants his life to look like, trying to figure out who he is beneath all the roles he's been playing and all the expectations that have been placed on him. She watches him start to do this internal work, and while he's still withdrawn and still distant sometimes, she can see him starting to engage with the world again, starting to show small signs of the person he used to be, starting to become present in their home in ways he hasn't been in months. He tells her one day that he's realized that he doesn't actually like his job, that he's been doing it for the stability and the paycheck, that it pays the bills and it looks impressive on paper, but that it's been slowly draining his soul and his spirit and his sense of self. He tells her that he's been working at a corporate job for years, climbing the ladder, doing what he was supposed to do, but that every day he goes to work feels like he's putting on a costume and playing a character rather than being himself. He tells her that he's been thinking about making a career change, about pursuing something that feels more aligned with his values and his interests and his actual passions, but that he's terrified of what that means financially, what that means for their life together, what that means for their future. She's supportive of this idea, even though it's scary, even though it means potentially less income and more financial instability, even though it means taking risks with their secure and comfortable lifestyle. She tells him that she'd rather have him be happy and fulfilled than have him continue living a lie just for the sake of financial security and status. She tells him that money doesn't matter if he's miserable, that security isn't worth sacrificing his mental health and his sense of self, that they can figure out the financial logistics if he decides to make a change. She tells him that she believes in him, that she trusts him, that they can weather this transition together. He also tells her that he's realized he's been disconnected from his body, from physical activity and exercise, from taking care of himself, from the activities that used to bring him joy and help him feel alive. He tells her that he used to love rock climbing and hiking and being outdoors, but he stopped doing those things years ago because he felt like he didn't have time, because he felt like they weren't important, because he got caught up in work and responsibility and the endless treadmill of trying to be successful. He tells her that he wants to start reclaiming those parts of himself, that he wants to get back to the activities that bring him joy and help him feel connected to his own body and to the natural world. She starts joining him on his hiking trips and his outdoor adventures whenever he goes. She starts encouraging him to make time for his hobbies and his interests, even when it means they have less time together, because she can see that these activities are helping him reconnect with himself, helping him remember who he is beneath all the corporate polish and the pretense and the performance. She can see him coming alive again when he's out in nature, when he's pushing his body to climb mountains, when he's doing something that feels authentic and real and true to who he actually is. She realizes that by supporting his journey back to himself, she's also supporting their marriage, she's also supporting their relationship, she's also investing in their future together. In therapy, he also explores his relationship with his family. He talks about the pressure his parents put on him to achieve certain things, to reach certain milestones, to become a certain type of person, to be successful and impressive and someone they could brag about to their friends. He talks about how he's been living his life according to their script rather than according to his own values and desires. He talks about how he spent years trying to be the successful son, the good husband, the responsible employee, without ever stopping to ask himself what he actually wanted, what would actually make him happy, what he would choose if he wasn't trying to live up to anyone else's expectations. He works with his therapist on separating his own desires and dreams from the expectations that were placed on him by his family and by society. He works on recognizing the patterns he learned in his family of origin and how those patterns have affected his adult life and his sense of self. He works on understanding that he's allowed to want different things than what his parents want for him, that he's allowed to make different choices than what society expects, that he's allowed to build a life that feels authentic to him even if it doesn't fit the mold of what success is supposed to look like. He has some difficult conversations with his parents during this time, conversations where he sets boundaries, conversations where he tells them that he needs to live his own life according to his own values rather than according to their expectations. These conversations are painful and complicated and messy, but they're necessary. She supports him through these conversations, helping him articulate what he needs, helping him stand firm in his boundaries even when his parents react with guilt or disappointment or anger, helping him recognize that their reaction to his choices is their responsibility, not his. Slowly, over the course of several months, the stranger in their home starts to transform. He starts smiling again, genuinely smiling, not the forced smile he was doing before, but actual genuine happiness that radiates from inside him. He starts engaging with her again, asking about her day, listening to what she has to say, being present in conversations, actually responding rather than just nodding politely. He starts initiating physical affection again, holding her hand, kissing her on the forehead, hugging her when she comes home from work, touching her in small ways that communicate connection and presence and care. He starts being a partner again, not just a roommate going through the motions, not just a stranger occupying the same physical space. One evening, he tells her that he's decided to quit his job. He's going to give notice at the end of the month, and he's going to take some time off to figure out what he actually wants to do with his career, to explore different possibilities, to spend time figuring out who he is and what brings him joy. He tells her that he knows it's scary and that it might be financially tight for a while, but he can't keep living a lie, can't keep pretending to be fulfilled by a job that doesn't fulfill him, can't keep sacrificing his mental health and his sense of self for the sake of a paycheck and a title. She's nervous about this decision, but she also recognizes that this is what he needs to do, that this is part of his process of finding himself again, that she needs to support him even though it's scary and uncertain. She helps him prepare his resignation letter. She helps him think through their budget to figure out how they can make it work financially. She helps him think about what kind of career change he might want to pursue, what kind of work would feel more aligned with his values. She's his partner in this process, supporting him, believing in him, helping him take the leap even though it's scary and uncertain and there's no guarantee it will work out. During his time off work, he travels locally. He takes solo trips where he hikes and explores and spends time in nature and reconnects with the part of himself that had been buried under years of corporate life. He goes to museums and art galleries and lets himself experience things for the sake of experiencing them rather than for productivity or achievement. He takes a pottery class and discovers that he loves working with his hands, loves the meditative quality of the process, loves creating something tangible and real. He volunteers at a local outdoor education center teaching kids about rock climbing and mountain safety, and he discovers that he loves working with people, loves helping them push past their fears, loves being part of their transformation and their growth. She watches him come home from these activities, and she sees the light in his eyes that had been missing for so long, sees him engaged with his own life, excited about his own experiences, present and alive in a way he hasn't been in years. She sees him reclaiming himself, finding himself again, becoming the person he wants to be rather than the person he thought he should be. She sees him transforming from a stranger in their home into a fully present human being, and she feels their marriage transforming as well, feels it shifting from obligation and stagnation into something real and authentic and chosen. After about 6 months of him being out of work, exploring, doing the internal work, attending therapy, reading and journaling and processing his own story, he comes home and tells her that he's figured out what he wants to do next. He wants to start his own rock climbing instruction and outdoor education business. He wants to teach people about climbing and outdoor safety and the transformative power of nature. He wants to do something that feels authentic to him, that aligns with his values, that allows him to help people while also doing something he loves, something that makes him feel alive and purposeful and present. She's supportive of this idea, even though starting a business is risky and uncertain and requires a huge investment of time and energy and financial resources. They sit down together and they make a plan. They figure out how much money they need to start the business, what timeline makes sense, what sacrifices they need to make in the short term to reach this long-term goal. They talk about how this might affect their lifestyle, their finances, their future together, their dreams and goals. And she realizes that through this process, they're actually building something real. They're building a partnership based on mutual support and shared values and genuine connection and authentic commitment to each other. As he's building his business, their marriage starts to transform as well. They start having deeper conversations about what they both want from their lives, about their shared values, about what kind of life they want to build together, about their dreams and their fears and their hopes. She tells him about some of her own dreams that she's been putting on hold, about ways she wants to grow and develop as a person, about interests she wants to pursue. And instead of just listening politely like he was doing before when he was disconnected and distant, he actually engages with her, actually asks follow-up questions, actually supports her in pursuing her own growth and fulfillment and transformation. They also start being more intentional about their time together. Instead of just existing in the same space while he's emotionally distant and she's trying to reach him, they actually plan activities together, they actually make time to be present with each other, they actually invest in their marriage. They start having date nights again, not just going through the motions, but actually connecting, talking, laughing, enjoying each other's company, rediscovering why they fell in love in the first place. They start taking small trips together, exploring new places, trying new experiences, building new memories instead of just maintaining old routines. About a year after he first started therapy, after he quit his job and spent time exploring and discovering himself, after he started his business and began building something that felt real and authentic to him, they're sitting on their back porch on a summer evening watching the sunset. The sky is painted in shades of orange and pink and purple, and the world feels quiet and peaceful and full of possibility. He reaches over and takes her hand, and she feels the familiar warmth of his touch, a touch that has returned to feeling present and real and connected instead of distant and cold and like a stranger's hand. He tells her that he's grateful for her, that he's grateful she didn't give up on him when he was acting like a stranger in their home, that he's grateful she pushed him to get help and do the work of finding himself. He tells her that he knows that his distance and his withdrawal must have been painful for her, that he's sorry for putting her through that he's sorry for checking out and making her feel alone and unseen. But he also tells her that he's grateful for the journey they've been on together, because it's led him to a place where he actually knows who he is and what he wants, where he's living an authentic life instead of a performance, where he's present and engaged and alive. She squeezes his hand and tells him that she's grateful too, that she's grateful he was willing to do the work, that she's grateful he came back to her, that she's grateful they're building this new version of their marriage together. She tells him that the man sitting next to her now is the man she fell in love with, present, engaged, alive, authentic, genuinely interested in her and in their life together. She tells him that she never thought she'd have to watch him be a stranger in his own home, but that going through that experience has taught her how important it is to really see each other, to really know each other, to really be present with each other, to fight for your relationship even when it feels like it's falling apart. His business starts to take off, and he's doing what he loves, teaching people about climbing and outdoor education, building community, making a difference in people's lives, changing how people see themselves and what they're capable of. He's making less money than he was at his corporate job, but he's so much happier, so much more fulfilled, so much more present in his own life. She's supporting him as he builds his business, but she's also pursuing her own interests and her own growth. They're becoming partners in the fullest sense of the word, supporting each other's dreams, celebrating each other's victories, helping each other through challenges, building a life together that feels real and authentic and chosen. She also starts therapy during this time, not because anything is wrong with her, but because she wants to do her own internal work, wants to make sure she's living authentically, wants to make sure she's not losing herself in the process of supporting her husband's journey. In therapy, she explores her own patterns, her own struggles, her own sense of identity and purpose. She realizes that she's been so focused on being a good wife and supporting her husband that she's sometimes lost sight of her own needs and her own desires. She starts making changes in her own life, pursuing a hobby she's always been interested in, spending more time with her friends, investing in her own personal growth and development. She starts painting, something she loved in college, but abandoned when she got married because there was no time, because it seemed frivolous, because she was supposed to be focused on her marriage and her career. She sets up a studio space in their spare room, and she starts creating art again, and she discovers that she's still passionate about it, that it still brings her joy, that it still gives her a sense of purpose and meaning. She shares her art with her husband, and he's genuinely excited about it, genuinely interested in her creative process, genuinely supportive of her pursuing something that brings her joy. They become two people pursuing their own passions while also supporting each other's growth. Two people building authentic lives while also building an authentic life together. 2 years after he started therapy, after he quit his job and started his business, after he did the deep internal work of finding himself again, after she did her own internal work of reconnecting with herself, they're in a completely different place. Their marriage feels authentic and real in a way it never did before. They're not just going through the motions. They're actively choosing each other every single day. They're actively investing in their relationship. They're actively supporting each other's growth and transformation and becoming. She looks at her husband now, and she sees someone who is fully present, fully alive, fully himself. She sees someone who has reclaimed his authenticity and his identity. She sees someone who walked away from the life everyone expected him to live and build a life that feels true to who he actually is. And she sees herself as part of that journey, as someone who stood by him through his darkest moments and supported him as he found his way back to himself, as someone who believed in him when he didn't believe in himself.